Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to the show that deliberately leaves the gas on when it leaves the house, on the off chance that the anonymous guy who threatened to post a burning rag through our letterbox actually follows through on his threat. I'm your nose for trouble, Aaron Bliss, and next to me sits the foul stench of misery, Mike Lash.
That's not the first time someone's referred to me as the foul stench of misery, actually. You won't be surprised to know.
Not at all, no. So how are we growing this week, Michael?
Dirty, actually.
We're well into
no.
June.
Go on.
We're well into June now. We're rapidly heading towards the solstice, which is known to be the trigger point for the rest of the restrictions being cast asunder.
At the moment.
And how are we feeling about this?
I'm kind of almost trying not to think about it, if I'm honest.
In what way?
Now my reason for that is, you know, it's like could be another Christmas, couldn't it?
No, it's good, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Christmas could come. Yeah, imagine saying, "Oh, Christmas coming twice a year now," and it's like, yeah, not the kind of Christmas that you like, though. It's a Boris Johnson Christmas. It's a Bojo Christmas.
Yeah, and nobody wants that. So I don't know. I'm trying to stay. Maybe because I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, I'm thinking, not trying to think too much about it. You know, if nothing does happen between now and then, and they've had talks, haven't they? And so far, all we know is, obviously at time of recording, so far all we know is that nothing has changed. So that's all we've been told, is that as yet nothing's changed. So, I mean, that can only be a good thing, can't it? I guess. But I'm not saying that I'm necessarily, you know, a pessimist. I mean, I think, you know, they'd say, don't they? There's two types of people. That's what they say. You know, you glass half full or glass half empty. Well, I'm definitely not half full, but I wouldn't say I'm half empty. I'm just like, well, you know, I dispute that and say, well, is there only two types of people? I say, well, no. How much fucking water's in the glass? Do you know what I mean? How big is the glass?
Well,
how much water does it hold?
What if we make it a beer analogy? You know, Mike's glass might be half empty, but he's already drank the keg behind the bar, so you know he's all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's just half a beer until it's full again.
Yeah. No, I like your optimism, Mike. Because
but go on.
No. Sorry, finish your train of thought.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and I think that would be wise for people. Certainly, over maybe the next week or so, because as we get into the last week before, I think really it takes something quite big for them to veto it and change it then. I think the closer it gets, the harder it would be really for them to just go, no, we fucked it up. We're only joking. No.
Mind you, Mike, you say that.
Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. We've already seen evidence that, because the problem is, and again, you know, for anyone who supports him, I'm sorry to kind of burst your bubble, but it's been proven time and time again that Boris Johnson doesn't like making decisions, and he will literally put them off till the last minute. I presume that's how he went through his education. I'm sure he partied every single night, and then the night before his assignment was due, he probably went over to grab the school SWAT in a headlock and say, right, you write my assignment. so I don't get kicked off the course tomorrow. We've seen it time and time again. He procrastinates, he ums and ahs, he doesn't want to be unpopular. He does everything he can to avoid decisions, which is amazing because he's kind of made this idea that Johnson is this amazing leader. Now, I always hate it when people talk about great leaders because a great leader is different things to different people. I think if you describe a great leader as someone who is kind of confident to the point of arrogant, talks down to people, is very loud and dominating, and says you do this, and basically takes charge that way, I think that makes you a weak person if you think that that's what makes a great leader. I would see a great leader as someone who inspires people by their example, and doesn't need to kind of cajole and coerce too much. It's like, guys, this is what we're doing. You get them on board because their vision is good and you respect that they do the work as well. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then when a problem crops up, the leader will grasp it by the scruff of the neck, say, look, we've cocked up, but I know the way out of this. This is what we're doing. And to me, that's what a good leader is. And amazingly, Johnson has got this reputation when we've seen time and time again that the one thing he doesn't like doing is making decisions. That's like you could argue, cut away anything the other bullshit. The one thing that a leader, in inverted commas, is a decision maker. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think context is important when you talk about things like that. But certainly in the context of, you know, politics and Parliament and leading the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because ultimately it's you'd like to think they'd have something a bit of something about them, wouldn't you? And it's do you know what? Okay, I'm going to build a team around me of people that I like, and to a degree that because you have to like them to get on with them to work effectively, but that I know and that I trust, and they're all the best people for the best job. And you know, but ultimately the buck stops with you. And so for that reason, you should want to be the one making the decisions, because you're the person that ultimately has to answer for the decisions that you've made.
Yeah. So, okay, let me throw this at you then, Mike. When we're talking about leadership skills and what makes a good leader. So you said there, you'll point the best people to the best jobs, as in the most suited jobs, right? I think that's a very good point. To me, it's the most obvious point. If you are a leader, you know, like when I was in charge of the football team, you put the best players in the position they're best suited to, and it gives you the best chance. And then you look like a great manager, even though it's just like, it's pretty logical. What Johnson does, unfortunately, and we know part of that's caused by Brexit, is that he basically threw out anyone who disagreed with him. So in that way, if you've got a leader who just surrounds himself with sycophants and yes men, then that's people who aren't good at the job. So then you get Matt Hancock, Gavin Williamson. And then, you know, suddenly you've got a government in turmoil who can't do anything right.
Yeah, and I think it is, and you're right. There's a time and a place for a yes man, you know, or someone that will just do as they're told. But I think Boris probably recognises, and it's probably why he doesn't want to make decisions, because he recognises he's probably not the best person to be making them. So he's not stupid. He's smart enough to know that, which is probably why he puts it off. But hoping, like, if I leave it, someone else will come out and say something that basically makes the decision for me, and then it's like, oh, well, that's obviously what we do. Then yes, absolutely, let's do that. But I don't know. I do think there's a time and a place for yes men, for people that will just do as they're told. I do. Unfortunately, I don't think that the place for those people really is in positions of authority, positions of power, if you like. They are not the type of people. If you want to be a successful leader in politics, we're talking about, and it does translate, but you don't necessarily want to just surround yourself with yes men. You want to surround yourself with the best people that know exactly what they're talking about, that know how to do X, Y, Z, that know what's required, that know what to do if something goes wrong, that are the experts in that field. You surround yourself with those people. Those people will give you the best possible information to make you as informed as possible, so that when you do make decisions, you feel like you're doing it from a position of strength.
Yes.
And the yes men and the how high and whatever, and the maybe the braggers or they work for them. That's fine. They can, if they've got people that work for them that will just do as they're told and whatever, that's fine, because they're the experts. So in a way, it's kind of like, well, this is literally, in this chosen field, this is the best person we have in the country. Don't fucking question them. Just do what they say. But don't question them ever. But you know what I mean? If you're going to have yes men, they're down there. That's where they belong. That's where they need to be. You don't have them right at the top of that chain, feeding into the top, because it's a recipe for disaster, right? Surely anyone can see that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I completely agree. You could argue that this whole mess started, of course, because the way that Johnson became Prime Minister in the first place is he pledged to get Brexit done. So the problem with him saying that is that he jumped straight to what he wanted to do without listening to advice. So if you've already made a decision about what you want to do, then of course what you're going to do is throw out people who disagree with you. But then he discovered that when he's in government, he actually would quite like those people who disagree with him. So then he has, like you say, a more balanced perspective on what's needed. Just look at what the chaos that it's caused with, cutting the aid budget. I think it's been denied a vote, but he was at grave risk of losing a vote. He's got a majority of 83, and he was at grave risk of losing a vote because his own party were turning against it. And if he'd have had people, those powerful voices in the cabinet before, the thing is, he could run a decent government if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. He wants to run a government based on a fantasy that we know was based on the kind of lies that he told himself and other people. If he wanted to tomorrow, he could run a very effective government by sacking people like Williamson and Hancock and Truss and all of these boneheads, Dominic Raab, and getting back in, the people who actually know what they're talking about, but would maybe say no to Johnson once in a while and say, no, I don't think that's the right thing to do, or no, that's really corrupt, you need to stop doing that. And it's like we said, Mike, I'm going to say it again, because again, it's a speculation and we've already done the legal thing time and time again. We don't know this for certain, but you have to come back, because I read a piece today that was like, Johnson refuses to address the accusation that his anti-corruption refuses to tighten up anti-corruption laws. And when you see a story like that, again, it bolsters the idea that we've already talked about, which is that, is Johnson actually interested in governing properly, or is he literally just using the office to pay off his own debts?
And I've not really seen that. Just briefly.
Very recent. There was an article, as you can imagine, it was in the Guardian. It's not going to be in the Mail, but there was an article in the Guardian saying that Johnson had refused to tighten up anti-corruption laws. Now, did you hear about the story that was, we talk often about corruption about Matt Hancock and Johnson himself and one or two other people. Did you hear about the biggest corruption of the lot? Because, you know, these elements of corruption, they are corruption. Anyone with two brain cells can see their corruption. But there's enough, like, tiny slivers of deniability there to say, no, you've misinterpreted this, even though we know we haven't. But the most obvious, like, slap you in the face corruption was announced this week when it was revealed that a man, I think, is it John Cruddas? Cruddas is his name anyway. He was made a lord. He was ascended to the House of Lords by Boris Johnson. Now, the prelude to this was Johnson was advised by his own advisors that this man was not suitable to be elevated to the House of Lords. He decided to ignore that and make him a lord anyway. 3 days later, the guy donated £500,000 to the Conservative Party. I mean, that's just, you know, a primary school child would make things less obviously corrupt than that. Do you know what I mean? So he's not even trying to cover it up anymore. Unless you can think of some kind of explanation that would...
I'm trying. No. Although, I mean, sometimes it's, I don't know, maybe sometimes he's just thinking this is just a hide in plain sight. Like, we could try and cover it up, but it only looks worse then if we get kind of called on it. So let's just, you know, let's just fucking do what we're going to do. People can say what they like, but as long as they can't prove it, we're fine. And then...
Are you sure it's not more likely to be your old adage of give someone an inch and they'll take a fucking mile?
Well, yeah, I mean, look,
you know, Johnson's sin that the system doesn't have any teeth to crack down on people who are being flagrantly corrupt. So he just thinks, well, if I can get away with it, I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, and I think you'd like to think that somebody in that position would certainly hold themselves or be held to a higher standard. Because we all would do it, wouldn't we? If we could get away with bits of this or bit of that, yeah, we'd do it, wouldn't we? Come on, like.
I think now and again, most ordinary people would be tempted now and again. Yeah, I agree. It's very rare to find someone who's completely 100% incorruptible all the time. Now and again, someone would whisper something in your ear. You'd be like, could I do that? Is that really going to hurt anyone? So I can see someone definitely, getting tempted now and again. But it's the rate of it happening now where, like, it's like he's crossed the line and now... We're not going back across the line. We're just staying on this side of the line. It's just, here we are.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Because if you can get away with it,
yeah.
Where's the impetus to want to cross back over?
It's kind of like the. Do you remember I don't know if you've ever heard of the broken window theory of policing. Is it policing? There was that theory that in a neighbourhood. You should always prioritize fixing broken windows above anything else, because the idea is if you allow low levels of crime to go like uncorrected, it creates a culture where people think, fuck it, they don't really care, and they keep pushing the envelope. You know, first it's graffiti, then it's broken windows, then they're breaking into buildings and stealing stuff, then it's arson. You know, it builds a culture of people thinking they can get away with things. Whereas if you fix the damage very quickly, it sends the message of people have seen this, they've seen this happen, they're not happy with it, they've repaired it, and the implication is people are now keeping an eye on this situation. It basically deters people. They're like, oh, well, I better go somewhere else next time. It's similar to that, what we're talking about with Johnson. If he just for once got remonstrated with and said, don't do this again, like literally public shaming, Prime Minister admonished, fined by the authorities or whatever. Don't do this again, kind of thing. But it just doesn't happen. So he just keeps pushing it. Anyway, to bring it slightly more in line with specifics of lockdown, Mike, there were, I think it was this week, it was basically 2 and 2 were added together to suggest that, you know, the biggest problems that we're having at the minute in terms of releasing the lockdown are, you know, the Delta variant from India. So the biggest problems are, how did it get into the country, or how was it allowed to get into the country? And it's basically been confirmed, not that it was a secret, but this was all on Boris Johnson's decision. So Boris Johnson deliberately allowed India to stay on the travel list, basically because he wanted to kiss up to the Indian government to get a trade deal. Now, India don't really have anything we want to buy. We don't really have anything we want to sell India. This is just to play out with his fantasy of Brexit, that we're like this massive player in the world. So he's actually threatened the health of his own citizens to try and play the big man on the world stage by getting a trade deal with India. Of course, it didn't work, because he then had to cancel his trip anyway, because it got, you know, that old thing about the decision was made for him because he delayed for so long that it had to be put on the red list, and then everything was scuppered. And I heard that he was heard basically saying that he didn't want to lock down the borders because it would crucify the travel industry. Now, I'm not being funny, but Brexit has crucified many industries. He's trying to sign a trade deal that will crucify agriculture. What's special about travel? Unless they're bribing him personally or donating to the Conservative Party, which is probably the reason. Do you see what I mean? I don't understand how you can have the brass neck to say, no, we can't lock down the borders because it would crucify the travel industry. It's like, what industry isn't being crucified right now?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's like saying, no, you can't close pubs because hospitality.
Yeah. What the hell is the difference? We're gonna potentially ruin pubs and restaurants because, well, it's a very good reason. We're trying to protect people from mixing and spreading the virus, so we're protecting our citizens. So there's a justification for why we're running them to the wall. Oh, but we're gonna let infectious variants into the country because we can't let the travel industry go under.
Is it because where that is?
I don't know for certain, but I'm about 99% certain that that's what it would be based in. Yeah, I imagine if we look into some of the large airlines and/or travel companies and their declared political donations, I think we might see a correlation in why they've been given particular special treatment. Maybe I'm being cynical, I don't know, but I'm sure the evidence is probably there.
Just an idea. I mean, I don't know either, but yeah,
It's
you wouldn't be surprised, would you?
It's Occam's razor, isn't it? Slice away the bullshit. What's the most likely explanation? That's the most likely explanation. But so, other news that's developed over the last week, Mike. Matt Wanksock, who unbelievably is still in a job, despite what we discussed last week. The media at large doesn't seem that interested in the fact that the health secretary has either been overruled by bureaucrats, in which case it's a national scandal, or he made the decision to deliberately eject people from hospitals into care homes without testing them for COVID, in which case he should be drummed out of office and facing criminal charges. But no, unbelievably, he's just brazened it out and he's still in post, still making announcements. And his latest announcement, Mike, I don't know if you heard about this, over 25s are about to be offered vaccinations, presumably because they're speeding up, or they now have the capacity to speed up vaccinations, probably to try and desperately get on top of the Indian variant that Boris Johnson let into the country.
Yeah. I hadn't seen that.
I think that I only saw that story today, so maybe that's very new. But the thing is, what I've heard from some people, including friends of mine who I respect, and I know possibly some of them are saying it because they're just desperate for things to return to normal, and they're sick of, you know, being worried or having their movements dictated by COVID. But I have heard them kind of write off as well. Well, it's not dangerous to young people, is it? We you know, we vaccinate all the important people. And what I would say to them is, first of all, yeah, I know the odds against you being hospitalized as a young person, not particularly terrible. But what I would say is, you're, as far as we can see, long COVID is a lot more likely to affect young people. Do you really want to have a condition that a year, 2 years later, you've got damage to your lungs, you've permanently fatigued, you might not be able to work? Do you want to be in a situation like that? Because
Some of them probably do, yeah.
okay, let me put it another way. Do you want to be in a situation where you can't work and the government's not going to pay you anything like the money you need to survive? Because that's, you know, that's effectively what's going to happen.
Yeah, but that's the decision that a lot of them make anyway, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Like, a lot of them choose to fucking sit around and
Oh my God.
fucking pokey bum wanks all day, don't they? So
This is your, yeah, I get it. It's your this is your work hat going on again. Do they, a lot of them come in your shop, do they?
I don't know what you mean.
Pinching ciggies, no. I saw in the news as well that the ghost of war crimes past, Tony Blair, is back in the spotlight, making all kinds of suggestions.
What's Big Tony saying then?
Oh, he says anything, doesn't he? He'll defend the indefensible. The one thing I don't think I ever hear him say in public is criticising the Conservative government, weirdly. But he seems to say everything else that's on his mind. And his latest great idea is he thinks there's a good case that we should immediately roll out COVID passports, so everyone who's been vaccinated can go about their daily life as normal, doing whatever the hell they want. To which the obvious response is, so you've asked young people to give up like 18 months of their life that they'll never get back, because they might have turned 18, they might have turned 16, they might have left school, all kinds of milestones and life activities and achievements that they're never going to get back. And you're telling them that as well as all of that, they're still going to be restricted from doing things until they're last in the queue to get the vaccination. So quite frankly, even me, as someone who's been partially vaccinated, say, Tony, why don't you fuck off to The Hague, face the music for Iraq, go where you should be amongst the other dictators who've illegally invaded countries and killed people on false pretenses. Leave the rest of us to actually kind of have some kind of sense of solidarity and say, kids have had a lot of shit to put up with during this period, and the least we can do is take them along with us and not just say, oh yeah, we've been vaccinated, fuck the kids. Yeah, they don't get any nightclubs or festivals, but we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, but the kids don't keep the economy going, do they? Well, that's not true, but you know what I mean.
He grows.
That's you know, how much money are these kids willing to pay him for the right to live their lives, as opposed to, you know,
wow.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. You know I'm growing with that. But
yeah, I think I do. And we all
I don't know. I think like you, to be honest, it's just a fucking joke of an idea. But
it's a sad situation.
You know, how would it work anyway? Surely it would be. Would it be people? Would you just need to be partially, or have like one of the two, like we have, or have both to get your passport? Or
I think for it to work, you'd have to be fully. Surely it'd have to be full.
Oh well, then he's fucking us over as well, so he can fuck off. Shit idea.
Well, yeah. No. Again, he's just talking about basically the Tory voter class being able to go back to normal while the rest of us continue to suffer, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, Blair can fuck off.
No, thanks.
Do you know, just to take the piss even more as well, while we're on the subject of piss taking with Blair, did you hear also that Dildo Harding, who, it can't be said enough, has taken 37 billion which is more than, I think we said, didn't we? It's like the third most expensive single project in the history of government projects. 37 billion for a track and trace system that has done next to nothing to assist this country. And she's gone on record as pissing and moaning and giving excuses of people had too high expectations. And now, apparently, she's thinking of throwing her hat into the ring to be the head of the NHS. Seriously. Yeah, little Miss Corrupt Trollface is thinking of applying to be the new head of the NHS.
What? She's come out and said that?
I believe she expressed a potential interest.
Well, that's concerning.
It's very concerning.
Because people like that wouldn't usually publicly admit to that unless.
And bear in mind, this is the most corrupt government in the history of lifetime.
That's what I mean. People like that wouldn't usually publicly admit to something like that unless they knew something that we don't.
Yeah.
And they're about to be fucking shoehorned into a position they have no right being in. Which, she wouldn't be alone.
No, she wouldn't. No. But I mean, we've said this before, and again, it bears repeating. Dido Harding had no significant experience in healthcare when she was given the track and trace role. Her main achievements before that was when I believe she was head of, was it Talk, where they had lowest customer satisfaction awards 2 years or maybe 3 years running, and they were also fined a record amount for a data breach. So her career, if you can call it that, in the corporate world was pretty risible. And literally, you could say that the only reason she continued to have such a successful time of it was she was married to a Tory MP. Then she was obviously, through that network, was handed the job of test and trace. And much like the terrible job she did at TalkTalk, she's taken £37 billion. Billion pound. Again, I can't get over how big that figure is. 37 billion. Just to put that into context, the governmental advisor, you must have seen this came out this week as well. The governmental advisor on how to rebuild education in the wake of COVID was consulting the government, and he made a report, and he made a really detailed plan about how this was going to be achieved over the next, I think it was 5 years, how to bring all the youngsters who've been held back and had their education affected, how to bring them up to the levels needed so they could go into the workforce, well, into life as well, with a proper education and the best chance of succeeding. And he drew it all up. I don't know how many hours he spent on it, whatever, and he budgeted it and said that 15 billion would be needed. 15 billion, so that's less than half of what was spent on test and trace that didn't even work. 15 billion. The government then turned around and said, we're looking to spend about 1.5 billion, and he resigned. Just compare and contrast with Dildo Harding. 15 billion is what he asked for, with a detailed plan and strategy to put it into place. He got told, we'll give you 1/10 of that. And of course, having dignity and honor, he said, right, well, I'm resigning. But, there's Dildo Harding. She's not resigned. She's not resigned in shame at spaffing 37 billion up the wall, doing next to nothing to help this country come out of lockdown, having the nerve to blame other people for having high expectations. And now she, like I say, troll face. She's got a troll face on. She's laughing at all of us. Oh, I think I might apply to be head of the NHS. Well, who's laughing in the end? We're the ones who are being shat on. And like I say, she just sat there cackling. Oh, I might be the head of the NHS. It's like, what planet are we living on for things like that to happen?
I mean, if that is something that could happen, I might throw my name in there.
You should. You trust me when I say this. You wouldn't do a worse job.
No, I don't believe I would.
I don't know.
Probably just as qualified as she is.
Don't get me
I
wrong.
mean, I'll tell you what, if you gave me 37 billion, I'd have done a better job of fucking test and trace.
Mate, listen, if either of us, I mean, maybe I'm speaking for you as well. Say they do it on sortition, so it's like 37 billion. You've drawn your name out of a hat. Congratulations, you're in charge of the test and trace. What's the first thing I do? I'm going to look for every expert I can find in the field. I'm going to look for every expert. I'm going to interview them. I'm going to ask them what they're asking for in terms of their salary. I'm not necessarily going to get the cheapest, but I'm going to work out, what's the average going rate for these people. I'll draw up, the range of people, what their salary expectations are. I'll get the, let's say, cheapest consultants to advise me on, the logistics of how many staff you're going to need, how will this work, what equipment will you need. And I would budget every penny of that to make sure we maximize bang for the buck. And I reckon even after doing all of that and having a functioning system packed with experts, I reckon I could probably give about half of that back by the time I'd finished. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, I've never tried to do it, but I'd like to think so. Put it this way. Would we have done any worse?
No, trust me when I say, people listening, trust me when I say, generally I wouldn't trust Mike to run a bath, but head of NHS, head of Dildo Harding, I'll give him the job. So that's where we are.
Well, yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome, Mike. And the other big news this week, Mike, was a lot of pissed off holidaymakers in Portugal. Because, again, we said it before, didn't we? Mike, how many times we said it? You don't deserve a foreign holiday. Why are you even thinking of a foreign holiday? We're still, okay, we're not quite in the middle. We're hopefully towards the end, but we're still in a pandemic. Why are you looking to go on a foreign holiday? It's just have some thought in your head. Just not be so selfish and entitled. And also, obviously no one's going to be listening to late night large in terms of, I'm going to cancel my holiday because Mike and Aaron make a lot of sense. But maybe they'll listen now that they've seen that the government doesn't give a shit about them. Because what happened was people went to Portugal because it was on the green list. And then with no notice at all, it's on the amber list. You have like 48 hours to get back before you have to quarantine. And then it makes a complete fucking mockery because people get on really packed flights. They come back to specifically avoid quarantine. So you are literally maximizing the chance of infected people getting under the radar and spreading the variant as they come back. Why did you not just fucking rule Portugal out in the first place? Why did you just say no foreign holidays? And we're not alone in this, Mike. I've seen on LBC and other journalists, they are asking this question. Thank God, at last, they are asking the question. They're saying, listen, we keep having these changes of heart, these last-minute U-turns. Oh, no, it's now on the amber list. And it's, you should only travel if it's absolutely essential. Why don't you just tell people they can't go on foreign holidays? Just rule it out until we're through the pandemic. Why is that such a difficult decision to make?
I don't know. I don't think it is. Clearly you don't. But there are obviously, for the people that would be making those decisions, and it's not just Boris, there's a whole host of people involved in those sorts of decision-making kind of processes. There must be things we don't know about. We know there'll be a lot of pressures that we can maybe,
Putting the dots on.
But we're probably don't know the half of. And probably can even guess the half of, so I'm not making excuses, but to me and you, I guess it's probably a lot easier to say no. But again, regardless, logic and just actual fucking common sense dictates what should we do. Well, you know, if I'm looking at it objectively, logic, apply some common sense. Well, clearly the right thing to do is this. I mean, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what else is, unless someone presents you with scientific evidence or reason as to why your logic or common sense is actually wrong or flawed, which I can't believe could possibly have been the case. So anything anyone else has come with, it hasn't been that. It's been pressures from elsewhere for other reasons. Unless someone comes up with, I am the foremost fucking scientific boffin on fucking this, that, and the other, and I'm telling you that's absolute nonsense. I understand your logic and the common sense you're applying. It's wrong. This is exactly why, and I know what I'm talking about, so don't worry about it. And then you go, okay. But that hasn't fucking happened. So just follow fucking common sense.
Should we?
Surely.
So, if you were to put this in terms of an equation, Mike, would you say Johnson drew two little columns? One was the idea of saying no foreign travel at all, and the other was saying yes, we should have foreign travel. And he thought in his own head, whichever column has the most things in it, that's the one I'll pick. So column against foreign travel is protecting the health of your citizens. The most basic job of government would be that. But nothing else in that column. In the other column, the travel industry, the airline industry, Tory voters who fancy a foreign holiday. So now you see that one column is bigger than the other. And then just to, you might say, well, yeah, but just as the coup de grace, he knows the newspapers will support him.
Yeah, it's clearly just a bullshit decision, because if you think about it, right, if you are the leader of any fucking country on this planet, right, and you come out on TV and you say, no, borders shut, no foreign travel, it's not happening until this is over. Who could criticize you for that?
Well,
I mean, actually criticize. People would come forward and go, do you know what? Set of bollocks, fair play.
Yeah,
Clearly the right thing to do. He's making a really difficult decision. A lot of people are going to be on at him, but he's got our best interests at heart because he has no other reason to make that call.
But that's what you call a strong leader. That's what you call a strong leader, isn't it? It's someone who takes what might be an unpopular decision, but he is cast iron certainty. This is the best way to protect the citizens of the country. And he'll look into the camera and he'll say, this is the decision. We need to do this. We need to get through this. So forget about foreign holidays. Do you know what? I know what Johnson's like. He wants to be the good time guy and he hates delivering bad news. You could even put some good news on it, right? What he could do is he could have shown up in front of a camera, done what you said and said, been the big leader and said, we are saying that there is no foreign travel to be allowed. He doesn't even need to say except for exceptional circumstances, because that goes without saying. So there will be no foreign travel allowed until we are through the pandemic. But what I am announcing is a government scheme for discounts of all kinds of getaways in the UK to help stimulate the UK economy. So please, everyone, enjoy a holiday in the West Country, in Scotland, in Wales. See all the glorious parts of it. He could even bring the Brexit bullshit into it, just whip up the nationalistic, like, we are the greatest country in the world, so let's travel the length and breadth of the country. And I mean, I should be his fucking PR guy to come up with these ideas. To me, it's so obvious that he could have.
So easy.
Yeah.
So that was my point. It would have been okay, not easy from the perspective of all the people that with a bit of this that want it open for their own reasons, right? It would have been it's so understandable. Even if people didn't like it, they'd have understood, and
Yeah.
so it's the easiest decision really to make. Was actually, I think, the right decision was the easiest one in that aspect. That's not always the case, but in that it was, and that's what blows your mind, because you think there's clearly a sensible way to approach this, and actually it's the easiest decision to come to anyway. It's the easiest way, clearest as you like, clearest fucking easy decision. What is right, what is wrong in terms of that. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that makes the decision a lot harder, but I just think you come out and you say, look, no. It play to people's. It just say like, do you know what? Actually, and there will be be open, be fucking open with people. Say, I've pissed a lot of people off by saying this, but it ain't gonna happen. We know travel. The safety of the people in this country is paramount. It's not going to happen. I will have pissed a lot of people off by saying this, but do you know what? If more people die, then it's absolutely necessary because I didn't have the bollocks to make the decision. I couldn't live with myself. So that's the decision I've made. Hope you can get on board. And like you say, maybe, yeah, here's some, but, you know, appreciate it's a token, but here's X, Y, Z. So you can do whatever you need to do or within reason within this country. But I'm sorry, it's not happening. You know, whatever you think of if Boris Johnson had come out and said that, regardless of what you think of him or anything he's done before, you would have to come out and say, okay, fair play to the bloke. Take your hat off into him.
He'd have my respect. Okay, maybe respect is a bit strong. I would nod my head. I go, you finally, you found your nuts. You've been able to make a proper decision.
I'd have more respect for him, definitely.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Because you know, a lot of people will argue, oh, it's easy to be a backseat driver. You know, oh yeah, it's easy to stand there sniping at everything everyone gets wrong. But these are things you could have seen from a mile off. We were saying them for weeks, weren't we? You know, we're not brains of Britain. I mean, I think we're relatively smart people, but not by no means brains of Britain. Like there must have been loads of people thinking this. Just don't let people go in or out of the country. Just let's get through this. You know, the vaccine's going so well. One more summer without it, where you're doing like a massive drive to have internal holidays, and then you know you have a blowout next year. It's just so unnecessary. And here we are. You know that I'm looking at the figures now, Mike. We'll wrap up in a minute, but I'm looking at the figures. Daily cases exploded. Nearly 2,500 added new cases last week. We're unfortunately seeing not a huge rise, but a rise in hospital admissions. Now, fortunately, as we've stated before, it looks like the vaccine program has prevented a lot of serious hospitalizations and particularly deaths, which is obviously good. But again, I say to people who, I know there are people that are not on board with the whole COVID's a hoax or whatever. They're not down that weird rabbit hole. But you know, they do kind of buy into this whole, oh, the worst is over. Let's go back to normal. You know, I don't care if I catch it now. It's like, guys, there is long COVID. Long COVID is a thing. We don't know exactly the nature of long COVID. There have been people who've been suffering from the last year with COVID symptoms. Do you really want to be one of those people? So we really need to minimize this where possible.
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, I just, as usual, I'm trying to think of things from the other side. But I mean, well, you could say, well, we don't know the long-term effects of vaccinations.
Yeah, without playing into the whole anti-vaxxer. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, which obviously you know. Well, I fucking had one, so you know obviously where I sit. But you know, hard to argue with that. If you're saying, well, look, long COVID, we don't know the long-term implications. It could be X, Y, Z. If you catch it, then well, okay, yeah, but we don't know the long-term implications of any of the jabs. They didn't get tested properly or as thoroughly as other, So
yeah,
that's true. So and they could turn around if they turn around and said that, you have very little argument just from that small kind of perspective.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, it's tricky, I guess. But we're nearly there. I tell you what, before we go, Mike, let me know, what do you think's more likely? Because obviously by next week we'll be within 1 week of the big unlocking.
Yeah.
What do you think's more likely? Nothing's changed, or there's an announcement made that it's going to be delayed? Knowing, the figures, as we've seen, are heading in one direction.
I feel like there will be an announcement, and it will not be the original unlocking that we were told it would be. Do I think it will be completely abolished? No. I think what's more likely is, okay, I know we said the 21st is going to be fuck everything, free for all again, do as you will. That's not going to happen anymore. We are still going to do this. However, this is still going to be in place. You're still going to have to do this. This is still going to be a rule. And that's going to carry on for, say, another 8 weeks until the vaccination rollout is. For example, do you know what I mean? I think it's more likely that it's
festival in August.
Yeah, well, I think that's more likely. I think it's more likely that actually what we get isn't just this one big fucking. Finally, everything else is unlocked and boom, do what you like. I think actually the last bits that we have left because obviously we've had recently some, freedom back with certain unlocking and de-restricting of certain things. I think this last kind of final de-restriction of rules and regulations, I think we'll get some of it, and I think the rest will get phased.
Okay. Yeah,
I think that's the most likely. Just looking at what's going on,
I'm probably about 55% certain that they will announce some kind of temporary delay. But like I say, only 55%, because a lot of the noises they're making of, yes, we know the cases are going up and it's not good, but look at the hospitalizations. We're not seeing a drastic increase in them, so that's the most important figure. So I'm only about 55% certain that. I mean, realistically, I don't see what another 3, potentially 4 weeks. Is that really going to be catastrophic? Just to really make sure we've got the maximum number of people vaccinated, and kind of hopefully got this Indian strain under control, Delta strain.
No. I just think it's one of those sensitive situations, isn't it? Like we said before, and like we said with Christmas and things like that. They were much more careful about it this time. To be fair, you don't want to make promises you can't keep, and they have said that even the ending of lockdown and whatever on the 21st and all the restrictions and stuff, that will be if the data still suggests that it's fine. And they have always said that. And so in fairness, maybe they did learn a lesson.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I'm just going to I'm going to pour a healthy dose of cynicism on the idea that they've actually learned a lesson. But yeah, I understand what the point you're making. So, who knows how much longer lockdown large will have to go on for? At least one more week, or two rather. But you know, I guess in the wider scheme of things, it might be better if lockdown large in its traditional format ended relatively soon, because it means we have all our freedoms back. But people, we really need to still be careful to not spread this variant and cause any more unnecessary suffering. So do keep washing your hands, don't get in people's grills, wear face masks when asked to, etc., etc.
Other things actually, while you're on that note, that are crucially and vitally important that you do. You must subscribe to Late Night Large, you know, on the YouTube channel and all our various other mediums. You must like the shows.
Guys, we're on Spotify, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook.
Are we out there?
We'll give us some love.
You must share. You must share it. Share it with a friend, with an uncle, with a cousin, with your best mates, nephews, dogs, sitters, boyfriend. Do what you need to do.
With your
share it with the world. Share the love.
Babysitter.
Yeah. Share the love, not COVID. Share the large. There we go.
Share the large, not the COVID. It's a good. Yeah, it's a good note. I like that optimistic note to end on, Mike. And maybe that's our new slogan. Rather than hands, face, space, air, it's share the large, not COVID. Until next time, people, stay safe, and we will grow you again.